It doesn't take much for your organs to shut down and for you to die.
Oh my God, this is pretty serious. Pretty intrusive to go and exhume someone's body. We're hoping, we're doing the right thing here.
In my 21 years of doing this kind of work, I've never met a colder person.
It's a warm August afternoon in 2005 when officers with the Onondaga Sheriff's Department in Syracuse, New York, respond to the Castor residence in the nearby town of Clay. 38-year-old Stacey Castor is worried about her husband David, who's been on an alcohol-fueled bender and locked himself in their bedroom the day before. That morning, Stacy went to work at the family business and called home repeatedly, but there was no answer. She thought David was just sleeping it off, but by 2 p.m., she still couldn't reach him. That's when she panicked and asked deputies to meet her at her home.
I was the lead detective on the Castor case, and after deputies arrived, after receiving a 911 call, they met with Stacey Castor, who was outside the residence. She was extremely upset because this was not like him, and there was a shotgun under the bed. And she hadn't heard from him for a while. So the deputies that were on scene wasted no time getting into that bedroom to find out what was going on. Inside the bedroom was David Castor, and he was lying on the bed. Next to the bed was a small nightstand. On top of that nightstand were 2 glasses. One glass was very clean, pristine, half full of what appeared to be antifreeze. The second glass, which was next to it, had some kind of brown residue in the bottom of the glass. That glass was mucked up and smudged if someone had been drinking out of it that was sweating or throwing up. In the close vicinity was an antifreeze container, a bottle of apricot brandy, and a bottle of cranberry juice.
People do commit suicide by antifreeze. I know it sounds a little ridiculous, but they do it, and it causes the body to go haywire. It's very painful and takes a long period of time.
But David Castor may have hastened the process. Near his body, investigators find an empty bottle of the sleep medication Ambien. It looks like an open and shut case. Or is it?
It's pretty much routine for us to respond to all unnatural deaths, suicides, and upon our arrival when we get there, to collect as much evidence as possible and speak to any witnesses or anything that can help us find out what's going on at that scene. In the beginning, we treat a suicide as if it's a suicide, and that's the way we run with it. But we keep an open mind to make sure that this is a suicide if this is what actually happened.
Police interview a nearly catatonic Stacey Castor for some insight into her husband's state of mind. "48-year-old David Castor owned his own heating and ventilation company, but the business was in debt and the stress of it all was starting to wear on David. And then his father died, only adding to his despair.
David Sr.'s father, Philip Castor, came over to help him recover from losses that were starting to happen. David's father did pass away 1 month before David died.
According to Stacy, David had been depressed and acting strange for the past few weeks, and in recent days, he had been moodier than ever.
They were supposed to be celebrating their anniversary. End up getting in a fight over the kids. They're not David's, they were Stacy's. David didn't really have a close relationship with them, and they were arguing about, that relationship.
Stacy's 18-year-old daughter, Bree, and 20-year-old daughter, Ashley, never warmed to their stepfather. Not that he ever warmed to them either. It seemed the animosity was mutual.
I understand there was friction in the household. David didn't have any relationship with Ashley and Bree. It was difficult for Ashley and Bree to accept David, and David found it difficult to accept them. He was very strict and controlling, and I'm sure that they rebelled quite a bit.
Over the past few days, David's drinking seemed to have spiraled out of control, so Stacy called a family friend to come help. Police pay a visit to the friend, Michael Coleman, to question him about what he saw at the Castor home. He tells investigators that, like Stacy, he was alarmed by how belligerent David had become on Sunday, the day before his body was discovered.
He gets upset, he grabs a bottle, locks himself in the bedroom, doesn't want anything to do with anybody, and starts drinking his face off. Well, he's being described over the course of the weekend as crazy drunk. I mean, like out of his mind, stumbling, mumbling. I mean, you have to drink a ton of alcohol to get that intoxicated.
Given David's volatility, Stacy and her daughters accept a friend's offer to stay at her place for the night. They just don't think it's safe to be at home. For all appearances, it looks like David failed to drink his way out of pain. So he turned to antifreeze and sleeping pills to end it all. But the test results come back with a very different story.
When we received the preliminary autopsy results, we took a look at him and found that David did not have any alcohol in his system, nor did he have any Ambien in his system.
Investigators are in shock.
We couldn't understand how someone had been drinking so excessively all weekend, didn't have any alcohol in his system. And if the Ambien bottle was empty with approximately 30 pills missing, why didn't he have any Ambien in his system? So we kind of wondered what's going on here.
It is the first of many questions that will plague detectives as they try to unravel one of the strangest cases of their careers. Time to dig a little deeper into this unexplained death.
In the evidence we collected from the residents, we searched the garbage can that was inside the kitchen, just your regular trash can. On top of the trash can was a turkey baster. And that turkey baster was clean, in good shape, almost like it was new. Kind of looked like no one ever cooked with it.
Investigators notice the smell of ethylene glycol, the main ingredient in antifreeze, and run an analysis.
They tested positive for David Castor's DNA on the tip of it. A substance inside the turkey baster called ethyl glycol, which is a common ingredient found in antifreeze, and there were no fingerprints on the baster at all. It just didn't make a lot of sense that David would leave the bedroom to go out to the kitchen to throw this turkey baster in the garbage and clean his prints off it.
Is someone in the Castor household trying to hide a dirty secret? In Clay, New York, 48-year-old David Castor has been found dead of an apparent suicide after a tumultuous weekend with his wife and stepdaughters. But the autopsy yields more questions than answers. Cause of death is ethylene glycol poisoning from ingesting antifreeze. Oddly, despite Stacey Castor's reports of heavy drinking, there wasn't any alcohol in the victim's system. Maybe she just misread her husband's behavior.
When someone first ingests ethylene glycol, it gets absorbed rather quickly over an hour or two, and they may act like they're drunk, like they've been drinking or something along those lines, and then very slowly your body will metabolize it to significant deadly toxins, but this is pretty slow, and it's kind of like a slow downward spiral, and the patient can take upwards of a couple of days to get to that point.
Investigators are puzzled by the discovery of an antifreeze-soaked turkey baster found in the kitchen trash. It's got David's DNA on the tip, but has been wiped clean of fingerprints.
The captain suggested that maybe David took the turkey baster and squirted the antifreeze down his own throat. And I'm saying, really? You're that crazy, distraught, that you're going to kill yourself with antifreeze and you're worried about how you're going to get it in your mouth?
Investigators have some serious unanswered questions. But as the days go by, the sheriff's department is eager to wrap things up.
Detective Spinelli comes to me and says that the captain wants him to close this case. But he's not comfortable closing it as a suicide. So I go to the captain and I speak to him about it. And the captain says to me, if the medical examiner says it's a suicide, it's a suicide.
But detectives aren't the only ones convinced there's more to the story than meets the eye.
Even though I understand there was conflict in the family, David would never commit suicide. He would never, for any reason. He loved life and living. He worked hard for everything that gave him pleasure out of life.
We went and talked to friends and family. Nobody could tell us that he was suicidal, he had ever been suicidal, or had ever had any suicidal tendencies.
If David Castor didn't intentionally poison himself, how did the antifreeze get in his body, and who is responsible? Detectives begin to piece together a timeline leading to David Castor's death.
He had to have ingested the antifreeze on Friday at the beginning of the weekend. It's a slow, horrible death. It takes some time to kill you, so it couldn't have been Sunday or Monday. It had to be at the beginning of the weekend. This is where the turkey baster comes in. If you're going to kill somebody by making them ingest antifreeze and they won't drink it, you wait till they're incapacitated, and then you squirt the liquid down their throat with the turkey baster.
You keep an open mind as to what happened to David, who could have done this to him, and naturally, could have been his wife, Stacy. Could have been the stepdaughters that were there. But you look at who had access to David, who was closest to him, and it would have had to happen over a period of time.
Police look at David Castor's inner circle of friends and relatives to find out who would benefit most from his death. They start with a visit to David's ex-wife and son.
When David and I were married, he, as well as I, always wanted for everything that we worked hard for to go to our son, David Jr. To make sure that it would happen, he went to an attorney, had a will made up. It was all notarized and signed and professionally done.
Though they were once close, police learned that the relationship between father and son had been strained for the past few years.
Throughout David's growing up years, father and son were very, very close. Everything was done together, or whether it was snowmobiling, jet skiing, four-wheeling. The relationship between father, David Sr., and son, David Jr., changed a bit after I left. They had extreme emotions in their own individual way. David could go to extremes, and that was bringing down our son pretty bad.
It is becoming clear to police that David Castor had a rocky relationship with all the children in his life. But is this a motive for murder?
We began looking at the scene as though, was it set up? could have possibly been staged by somebody. And with that, the evidence started coming back. The results on the glass that was empty, had the brown remnants in it, that had David's fingerprints all over it and his DNA on the rim of the glass.
The glass containing the antifreeze also has David's DNA on the rim, but oddly, his prints are nowhere to be found.
He drank antifreeze out of that glass, and this is why he died. Then why aren't any of his fingerprints on that glass?
Detectives bring Stacey Castor back to the sheriff's department to answer more questions about what really happened the weekend of her husband's death.
Another issue that we had in the room was an apricot brandy bottle that was in the bedroom with David. When the test results came back, it was found that it only contained Stacy's fingerprints on it. David's fingerprints were not on that bottle. But according to Stacy, he was intoxicated all weekend. He was drinking alcohol. And if David went and get this bottle and brought it back to the room and drank this apricot brandy, then why wasn't there one fingerprint of his on that bottle? When I interviewed Stacy, I asked her about that apricot brandy bottle. And I asked her if she had ever touched that bottle. Had she ever brought it to David? Had she ever poured apricot brandy for David? Had she poured it for anybody? And she kept telling me no.
She says she poured David cranberry juice at one point over the weekend, but never the brandy. Her story doesn't make any sense.
The medical examiner had listed David's death as suicide. But at that point, we weren't really sure what was going on. But once these results came back and more and more evidence came back, we decided this wasn't a suicide. This was a homicide.
Medical examiner has ruled it a suicide. We think it's a homicide. So we have to have a meeting with everybody to convince them that it's not a suicide, it's a homicide.
Detectives present all of their suspicious new findings to the medical examiner, Dr. Stoppaker.
Spoke to him about the possibility of this being a homicide. Dr. Stoppaker agreed, so he decided to change his ruling from suicide to undetermined.
And then we just started to run with it.
As investigators begin to dig deeper into Stacey Castor's background, they pay special attention to her former life as Mrs. Michael Wallace. And what detectives uncover next will throw the whole investigation for a loop. Turns out the widow has been widowed before.
We find out that she has a first husband who died when he was 38 years old. We're saying to ourselves, 2 dead husbands, both of them died relatively young. What the hell's going on here?
In Clay, New York, the investigation into David Castor's staged suicide takes a surprising turn when police learn that Stacy's first husband, Michael Wallace, also died under strange circumstances. By all accounts, it was a good marriage. The Wallaces didn't have a lot of money, but there was plenty of love to go around and everyone seemed happy. That is, until December 1999, when everything started crashing down. Michael, normally the life of the party, hadn't been feeling well for weeks. His family encourages him to see a doctor, but he declines. 2 weeks later, he is dead.
We went to Cuba County, met with the authorities there. Cuba County is where Mike Wallace died. We learned from them that all he had was some flu symptoms the week before he passed.
His death is ruled a heart attack. Mike's sister begs Stacy to consent to an autopsy. She wants to know how an otherwise active, healthy 38-year-old could die like that. But Stacy refuses, and her explanation is baffling.
Stacy didn't want an autopsy done because she told them that he's a drug abuser, he's got a bad heart, he's in ill health. She's not surprised at all that he would pass.
As details of Michael Wallace's death surface, police become increasingly suspicious that they've got a black widow on their hands. Time to turn up the heat on Stacey Castor. Investigators set up wiretaps on the family phone and question dozens of friends and acquaintances.
What we wanted to do was start, as we call it, rattling the cages. We start talking to people, and at that point, it starts to telegraph, and a lot of people start talking. And at that point, we wanted to know what was getting back to Stacy, or what she was going to be talking about. One of the things we did was subpoenaed the cell phone records for Stacy as well as the house records, just to see how many times she really did call David, to see if he was okay. As she stated, she cared about him and wanted to know.
Despite the fact that Stacey Castor claimed she had called David several times that morning, phone records subpoenaed by police reveal she only called him once, 30 minutes before she called 911. Police also arranged for video surveillance at the house and at both men's graves. Oddly, Stacy has buried both her first and second husbands in adjoining plots. Detectives hope that the grieving widow will visit her late husbands and perhaps reveal some damaging information in a graveside confession. She never does. Now to find out if Michael Wallace has anything to say for himself.
Based on everything that came back in the case and everything we presented to the medical examiner's office, after speaking with him, he believed we had a good case for attempting to exhume the body of Stacy's first husband.
We get a court order for Mike Wallace's medical records. When we get him back, the worst thing that he's had is a hernia. Certainly not the same claim that Stacy's making, that he's drug abusing, bad heart, has all these maladies. We're going, oh my God, this is ugly. We got a problem here. So we go over to Cayuga County, meet with the sheriff's office, meet with the district attorney's office, and we say to them, we got to get Mike Wallace out of the ground. We got to dig him up.
It's not a decision they take lightly.
Pretty intrusive to exhume somebody. It's not a nice thing to do, especially to their family. And all along, we're hoping, we're doing the right thing here.
But with 2 men dead and little hard evidence, this may be the only way to keep a killer from getting away with murder twice. Detectives in Clay, New York are in the midst of a bizarre murder mystery. After Stacey Castor is suspected of poisoning her second husband with a lethal dose of antifreeze, detectives arrange to exhume the body of her first husband to see what really killed him. It's been 7 years since Michael Wallace died of a suspicious heart attack after a 2-week flu.
I received a phone call from the doctor at the medical examiner's office, and he said to me, "You're not going to believe this. Mike Wallace's body is full of crystallization." And at that point, I knew what he meant. The common ingredient found in antifreeze is ethyl glycol, and that's what does the damage, and that's what kills you. At that point, we had 2 people now that have died from ethyl glycol, or rather antifreeze poisoning. And I'm thinking, lightning doesn't strike in the same place twice.
When the results came back that the first husband died from antifreeze poisoning, and we already knew that the second one did, we're saying to ourselves, what are the chances that 2 guys married to the same woman killed themselves with antifreeze? We knew we were dead on.
Now to question a vital potential witness, Stacy's daughter, Ashley, who spends her weekdays at a nearby college.
Ashley was interviewed at the college she was attending by 2 of our detectives. The purpose of that was to discuss with her the exhumation of her father's remains and to discuss the questioning that had happened with her mother. They were met with Ashley not being cooperative. She didn't want them there. She was very upset because she was upset to think that we were thinking her mother might have, committed these crimes and that we were looking at her for that.
Before Ashley has a chance to discuss the exhumation with her mother, detectives swing by the Castor residence pretending it's just a routine visit. They ask Stacy if she'll come to the station to lay a few remaining questions to rest.
When we spoke with Stacy, she was very surprised to see us. She couldn't understand why we were still investigating a suicide. She told us that she had seen the medical examiner's reports and there should be no reason why this case was open, and she didn't understand why she would need to come to our office to speak with us about it.
But then Stacy makes a flippant comment that catches detectives off guard.
Stacy had mentioned that she was tired of being haunted by people that were in the grave. And at the time, I thought that was a really odd comment to make, and it prompted Detective Spinelli to say to her that maybe she needed closure.
Investigators know this could be the interview that either makes or breaks their case. At the station, officers watch the interview from a monitor in another room while Detective Spinelli takes the lead.
While speaking with Stacy, the last question that I asked her pertained to the glasses that were on the nightstand, because those are important to us. Exactly what was going on with them. I showed Stacy a picture of the nightstand with the glasses on it, and I said, Stacy, can you tell me which glass it was that you poured the cranberry juice in for David when he asked you for some? And she looked at the photo and said, well, when I poured the antifreeze, and then she looked at me and went, I mean the cranberry juice. You're confusing me. And I said, Stacy, I just asked you a simple question. I didn't confuse you. I just asked you which glass it was you poured the cranberry juice in. And she said, well, you're jumping around and you're confusing me.
Her voice became shaky. She was like a deer in headlights, and as Detective Spinelli tried to question her more, she said she was done and she didn't want to talk anymore.
And we were sitting there watching her going, oh my God, did she just say that? Did she just say antifreeze? That's a Freudian slip. If you didn't kill somebody with antifreeze, there's no reason why antifreeze would ever come into your brain.
In the days following the interview, police prepare an arrest warrant for Stacey Castor. But before they can bring her in, they get a shocking phone call that will turn the entire case on its head.
I got a phone call from one of the detectives, and he says, you won't believe this. There's a suicide call at the Castor residence. Looks like one of the girls tried to commit suicide. And I'm saying to myself, really? You gotta be kidding me. Ashley's rushed to the hospital. She's incoherent. Can't tell anybody what she took. Her heart rate is racing. They're trying to figure out what she has in her body. They're trying to treat her, but they're guessing.
She's left behind an astonishing typewritten suicide note.
In the suicide note, it says that Ashley killed David and also killed her father years ago.
There is also a new piece of information in the letter. Seems she used antifreeze and rat poison to do her killing.
We didn't know anything about rat poison until the suicide note. The killer would obviously know that. We had tissue samples of Mike Wallace, so it was going to be very easy to make a comparison.
Is it possible the real killer was right under their noses the whole time? There were witnesses who recalled that at her stepfather's funeral, she showed a startling lack of emotion. If Ashley pulls through, she'll have a lot of explaining to do. Is this young woman truly a sadistic poisoner? Or is there even more to this story than meets the eye? In Clay, New York, 18-year-old Bree Wallace has discovered her older sister Ashley on the brink of death while home from college for the weekend. Next to her, a suicide note takes full responsibility for the murders of her father and stepfather.
While Ashley's unconscious, I'm by her bedside the entire time. She finally starts to come to, and I start talking to her about killing herself, and she gets this really screwed up look on her face and says, "Kill myself? No, absolutely not."
When I went to interview Ashley at the hospital, I was introducing myself to her, and as soon as she realized I was in law enforcement, she said to me, "I hope you know I didn't try to kill myself. I would never try to kill myself. I would never leave my sister."
And detectives are pretty sure she's telling the truth. They take a close look at the suicide note for answers.
When I read that suicide note and went through it, the first thing that jumped out at me and hit me like a hammer was the word antifreeze was in that suicide note. That's exactly what Stacy said the day of that interview, antifreeze. It wasn't antifreeze, which is a normal word, but the pronunciation of antifreeze was exactly spelled in that note the way Stacy said it that day.
We realized that that was not a coincidence.
It's quickly becoming clear Stacey Castor will stop at nothing to stay out of trouble, even if she has to pay with her own daughter's life.
The day that Ashley was taken to the hospital, Stacy was there with her. And we realized that Stacey Castor was the person responsible for harming Ashley and for the murders of both husbands. And it came to a point where Stacy wanted to leave the hospital, and we needed to make a decision fast, and that decision was made, and we arrested her. Because we cannot give her another chance to harm Ashley or anybody else.
Her daughter's in the hospital. She has a husband that died, a second husband that died, and here she's being charged with murder, and it just didn't seem to faze her. She didn't seem to care. Never in a million years did I think she'd try and hurt her daughter. Ashley was in extremely bad shape, so much that she could have died. I couldn't believe it. It was just, how could a mom do that to her kid?
When I was talking to Ashley, I was telling her that we were there to help her. And as I was talking with her, she was realizing that her own mother, had tried to kill her. And as we continued to talk even more, she also was realizing that not only has her mother tried to kill her, but her mother was responsible for killing her father and her stepfather.
When Stacy was arrested for the attempted murder of Ashley, she was coming out of the cage, and I said, "Stacy, I haven't talked to you since, but I have one question for you. How do you decide that you're God and determine which child's gonna die? Which one do you need to sacrifice?" And she just kind of looked past me and said to the other detective, "Get me out of here."
According to Ashley, Stacy had offered her a cocktail on Friday night to celebrate her 21st birthday. Stacy told her that with police pressure mounting, she might not be around for long and wanted to make the most of their time together. Not long after finishing her drink, Ashley starts feeling sick. Little does she know, she's just swallowed a nearly fatal dose of crushed pills. By 5 p.m. that evening, she is so unwell that she goes to her room, where her sister Bree finds her early the next morning, sweaty, glassy-eyed, and incoherent. With Stacey Castor now in custody, investigators try to build as tight a case against her as possible.
Well, there's been a real advancement in science in police labs across the nation. So if you make a mistake as a criminal, we're going to find it.
In the suicide note, not only did it say that the person that wrote that note tried to kill Michael Wallace with Annie free, but tried to kill him as well with rat poison. Shortly thereafter, received another phone call. There indeed was rat poison in Michael's system. The person who wrote that note absolutely 100% killed Michael Wallace and David Castor without a doubt.
Technicians pull a single set of fingerprints from the suicide note. A perfect match to Stacey Castor.
Through the course of the investigation, we determined that the suicide note was typed on the home computer. Our computer guys were able to pull little snippets of that note out with date and time stamps. Comparing those date and time stamps to who may have been home at the time, we found that Ashley was either at school or at work, Bree was at school, and Stacy was the only one home.
There were a couple of drafts of that suicide note done prior to the actual note being written, and those drafts have been deleted. Upon further examination of that, and looking and listening to the phone calls from Stacy, it was found that during the time one of those drafts of the suicide note were written, Stacy was typing on a computer. You can hear it in the phone call we had because we had the phone tap in place. And at that time, Ashley wasn't in the residence. She was at school.
Cold, calculating, and selfish, Stacey Castor is a breed of monster these investigators have never dealt with before.
It's just unbelievable that a parent would go to the lengths of harming and framing their child.
Police still wonder what motivated Stacy to poison her own family.
I think she killed both of her husbands because she didn't have any other way to get rid of them, and she was sick and tired of them. In my 21 years of doing this kind of work, I've never met a colder person.
But David's first wife thinks the answer is much simpler: greed.
When I was told that David and Stacy had married, I said, no, there's no love there. She just wants the estate, the business, the house. She wanted it all.
And sure enough, David's will appears to leave everything to Stacy, nothing to his son.
When David Jr. finally received a copy of this will that his father supposedly had written, I saw that copy, and the first thing that I wrote on there was, this is not David's will. David would not ever do a will in this manner. He would have it done through an attorney and notarized. He would never leave his only son out of his will. The signature I wrote on that copy was pretty shaky. It's traced. You know, it's not David's signature. This is not David's will.
David's ex-wife, Janice, brought to my attention that David left Stacy everything in the will. He didn't leave anything to his son, nothing. And we found that a little bit odd. Once the arrest took place, we had so much going on, District Attorney's Office took over that portion of it and interviewed some people regarding that. And the outcome was that Stacy forged that will.
Another charge is added to the growing list of crimes that Stacey Castor will have to answer for in court. In 2009, Stacey Castor goes to trial for the second-degree murder of David Castor and the second-degree attempted murder of Ashley Wallace. She doesn't show an ounce of contrition.
After our investigation, all the evidence against her, testimony, Stacy's still contending that Ashley killed both of her fathers and tried to commit suicide.
On January 31st, 2009, the jury begins its deliberations. 6 days later, they reach a verdict. Stacey Castor is convicted on all charges and given 51 1/3 years in prison. Finally, justice is served. The Black Widow won't be doing any more killing.
This was very unique in the fact that we had forensic science, computer science, medical science, all come together to convict this woman, and it took all of those aspects to get our conviction.
But for Stacy's daughters, the outcome is bittersweet.
Because of the actions of this one woman, they don't have a father, they don't have a stepfather, and they don't have a grandmother. The grandmother stood behind Stacy at the trial, and because of that strain, there's no longer a relationship there either.
For the detectives who worked tirelessly on the case, it is a moment of validation and a reminder of how close Stacey Castor came to getting away with murder.
If it wasn't for Detective Spinelli's spidey sense tingling, this might have gotten closed as a suicide. Somebody else might have had this case and closed it as such. Anytime you have a case like this, you need to have good luck and good police work, and you need to have the cards fall the right way.
Cayuga County has yet to indict Stacey Castor on murder charges for the death of her first husband, Michael Wallace. But those closest to the victim find peace in the fact that his killer will likely spend the rest of her life in prison.
Stacey Castor, I believe, is one of the most dangerous human beings. She's where she belongs. She's the kind of individual that can walk amongst you, no one would suspect anything, and yet she's very cold-hearted, and she thought nothing of killing 2 husbands and trying to kill her own daughter. Her sentence is more than appropriate. She should be in there with life without parole. She should never be let out.
As for David Castor's son, he's trying to have his father's remains moved from the cemetery plot where Stacy had him buried.
David is still not in his rightful resting place. We need to move him where his family will be comfortable to see him and start their healing process. Stacy is where she belongs. She took the life of someone that loved life and living to his fullest. A father, a son, an uncle, from everyone that loved him.